Wow, isn't that a beautiful song? Thank you so much, Olivia, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, Carol, Lindsay, thank you. Nice. I'll be back. I'm resting for a minute. That was sweet. Ooh, nice. You know, many of you know my wife has not been well. She has attracted a virus, shingles, about 7-8 weeks ago. And that part of it has taken a toll on her, and her immune system was down, and it was a long haul. And then, wouldn't you know, she has a bladder and a kidney infection that put her in the hospital all last week. And so she's doing better, but it's, how many of you have ever been scared before? And so sometimes fear takes you to a place of realizing how blessed you are to have what you have. And so, not that I want to live in fear and being scared, but when she made the turn, I was quite joy-filled. She wasn't so much joy-filled, because it's still painful, and if you've ever had a bladder infection, it's like, ow! But I was quite joy-filled. I had a week that was, my good friend Richard Levy, who I put up on the screen about 2 months ago, my hero, who taught me how to play, who used to do workshops for Unity ministers at conference, teaching them how to live their life to the fullest and not sell their souls to the church. And yet do their job, but be free and unlimited. And he did workshops because, you know, when you're right out of seminary, you do way too much, and not necessarily healthy to do that. But he was just a playful guy, and also was worked out, ate right, had fun, wore the crazy ponytail, had the earring in his ear, just off the chart fun guy. And we were all just amazed when he took ill with bone cancer and passed on Sunday morning in Hawaii. He went back to Hawaii, where he loved so much, the islands, to spend time with his family, and made transition Sunday morning around 7:30. And then our dear friend Dave Clements, I believe I got that right. I don't do last names very often, but Dave is a support team here at the church. He's back up to our friend Michael up in the booth, and many of you knew Dave, and Dave took ill and passed away on Tuesday. So, yeah, and it was like, 62 years old. It happens. It's part of life. And yet, sometimes things happen to you and around you, and knowing that God is absolute good, regardless of what's occurring, brings you to, I hope, to a place that you appreciate your life. It's really a gift from God. Not to say this probably is not the only life you're going to have. I don't want to mess with you too much. But I think, like my minister told me years ago, he said, you know, don't get too carried away with reincarnation, even though it kind of makes sense. A lot of people believe it because you can get too carried away with that. Be focused on this life, because this, like he said, this is the life you died for if you believe in reincarnation. Think about that. It takes a moment to sink in now, doesn't it? This is the life that you died for, so you came here for a reason. You have something to offer, a place to be. And sometimes what happens, we can be thoroughly distracted with life out there. And so sometimes we get distracted. But today, I want you to set all your distractions aside. I'll do the same. Whether it's a wife that's healing, or a loss of a loved one, or challenges in your life, whatever it is for you. Are you willing to do that just for the next 30, 40 minutes? If so, just raise your hand. Yeah, and here's the deal. It'll be there waiting for you when you leave if you want to pick it up. Just set it on a shelf. It's there for you. If you want to pick it up, don't worry about it. But just set it on a shelf for a minute, because I want to talk to you about a few things. Many of you are involved in this And our fall program is called The Seed of the Soul, Gary Zukav. I had a chance to hang out with him at conference in June. A sweet, sweet, sweet man. Kind of reintroduced his book to us, and we brought it back and reintroduced it to you. And some of the things that are in the book, you know, if you're reading the book, you would know that Gary Zukav is kind of a heady guy and a whole lot smarter than I am. Trust me. This is a book that I would not read as a novel. I would read it like a line or two at a time and let it sink in. Show of hands for that. It's like, because you go, whoa. And then you have to kind of like process that information before you go on to the next one. It's kind of like Course in Miracles or the Bible or an inspirational book. I'll tell you a little tidbit, little information about how I study a book like this. The Prophet's a prime example of a book like this. Is that when I read it for the first time and something goes like this to me, I highlight it in yellow, and I sit with it for a while. And then I'll pick a book up another year or two later, and you might read the book. This time do it in green, because you'll find that it speaks to you in a different way each and every time you read something that's profound. Some of the stuff in here is absolutely profound. And I want to talk to you about the chapter on karma. How many of you have ever heard the word? How many of you are living out karma today? It's an Eastern philosophy that says basically whatever you do, you're going to reap from it. Eastern philosophy says that everything that you go through in life, you're going to come back and have karma on that. In other words, it's just equal exchange. I'll give you an example. If you condemn someone, a race, a person, or thing, next lifetime, if you believe in reincarnation, you're going to come back and be the person that's being condemned. It's that balanced thing, so it's called karma. And so I want to share with you something that once you find this out, you're going to know that you should have written me a check for $1,000 to the church for this bit of information. So trust me on this. This is a valuable piece of information for you to know. So people say, what's the difference between perhaps a new thought, a belief system around karma versus an Eastern philosophy around karma? Karma in Eastern philosophy means this, and Western philosophy would mean the golden rule. But how do we have to reap everything, that we sow? I'm gonna show you right now. I'm gonna teach you right now how you can get out of any bad karma you might have created. You up for that? Okay. It's simple. It's a simple technique. It's called raise your consciousness. Karma is created at a level of consciousness at wherever it was created. Lower consciousness, perhaps, middle consciousness, wherever you did something. Now, there's good karma and there's negative karma. I'm going to just refer to negative karma for a minute. So you've got this thing called negative karma. You've done things you ought not to have done. Now, it's going to come and hit you. It's going to come around to you only if you choose to live at that level in which it was created. Follow this? There are levels of consciousness. We teach this. You are all about the level of consciousness in which you create. So the work on this planet is to do what in consciousness? Not to go down, but to do what? To rise in consciousness. To rise in consciousness. You create something at this level of playing field, and you have an aha, an awareness. The Spirit of God has touched your life. You no longer come from that place. Like the guy who wrote Amazing Grace, he transported slaves. He was a slave trader. He had a moment in his life, an aha moment, and then he rose above that level of consciousness and wrote the song Amazing Grace. He does not have to worry about any karma that was created at the consciousness where he used to be. You only have to be at the consciousness where you are. Make sense? So if you want out of something, how many of you have done something you ought not to have done before? Testify. Come on up now. Ralph, come on up. Jim, we know you need to come up. We all have it. And don't worry, if you've risen above that level of playing field, you'll never come to you because that's not who you are. Ain't that cool? If you want a better life and you want to rise above strife, rise above lack and limitation, what you are asked to do then is to do what? To raise your consciousness into a different vibration. Jesus was not what we called deep pockets. He didn't walk around with, an American Express card. He didn't walk around with a whole lot of money. But he had was what? High consciousness. Whatever he wanted, he manifested it. He called it. It appeared because he was at that vibrational place in his life. So if you're still stealing, it's going to come to you. Rise above it. If you're lying, you're going to suffer some consequences for that. Rise above it. And then you don't have to worry about everything you've done catching up with you, because there's nothing for it to catch up to, because you are who you are today. The work on this planet is to raise consciousness. We start with ourselves, the Christ presence within, the light. We had our class this morning, great turnout in our morning classes. If you're not coming to the 9 o'clock Discovery Hour, I encourage you to come. We use this phrase a lot. It's the beginning of the creation. It says, let there be light. Together, let there be light. Let there be light. And as you bring in the light into every area of your life, it begins to heal. The way out of old karma, negative karma, is to rise above it. And how you rise above it is to begin to practice spiritual principles that allow you to move out of it. It doesn't belong to you anymore. I've said this so many times before. If you're dragging around guilt and dragging around all this stuff you've done in the past and you would never do it today, you can let it go because you don't own it. It doesn't belong to you. You want to worry about something that's real. If you would not do it today, that karma is history for you. Isn't that cool? That's, but we all have our work to do. So start from where you are and begin the process of raising your consciousness. And how we can best raise our consciousness in this next chapter he speaks to is this thing called reverence. Now, I've been referred to as an irreverent minister. If I was to go on to, there was an old TV show where you get out and you line up. It was called, I think, To Tell the Truth. And if no one on that program would ever guess me to be a minister, trust me. But I'm not talking about that kind of reverence. My friend Richard Levy, who just made his transition Sunday, was looked upon by certain people as not very reverent because he didn't necessarily always dress up and didn't look appropriate, but he was the reverence of them all. He was as reverent as they come because what he embraced was all of life. And until I read this book, I thought that chapter just like, oh man, I thought I was pretty reverent kind of guy. I like life. I like most people. The key word there was most people. And I can tell you about people that I look up to that I consider very reverent people that I admire. Louis E. Meyer, J. Sig Paulson, my minister Howard C. I mean, the list goes on and on about people that I admire and I revere, and they're excellent people. And because I have something in common with them, I love for who they are, Gandhi, you name it. Martin Luther King Jr., all of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., all of those people I have reverence for their work. And each and every one of them was not going down this slippery slope of trying to make everybody happy and trying to please everyone. They were doing what God called them to do. So there's a sense of reverence, right? You have your favorites, right? Those people. My very favorite, the guy that did the news broadcast for so many, Walter Cronkite. There was the hero of my life growing up. How many of you love Walter Cronkite? Do you remember the tear that fell from his eye when Kennedy was killed right here in Dallas and he made that announcement? It broke my heart. I was just young, and this guy was like my hero. And so I had reverence for life. I have reverence for the planet. I have reverence for the birds. And I have reverence for, I have reverence. I found out that I have reverence for spider just 2 days ago. A spider. I was sitting out on my deck. I was drinking a can of soda, and I had popped the lid, and I had set it down for a minute. And I was also eating kind of a protein bar. It had nuts and stuff in it. And so when I reached for my pop and I went to put it to my mouth, I caught something right here. It was about that long, and it was a hard thing. And I thought, oh, gee, I got some of my protein bar. I was about to take on protein, all right. And I pulled it out, and it was the body of a weirdest spider I've ever seen. It was about to be, And the first thing I wanted to do was throw it to the ground and go, ah, stomp it. And now I'm reading this book. Can't do it. Because now I've let there be light. Let there be light. So I had the light experience, and I set him down on the table and then eventually moved him on his way. And so for those of you who are wondering about all the bugs and things that appear, I go into this technique of I give them 24 hours to get out. Because I'm not that reverent to give them more than a 24-hour stay. But here's what I'm trying to get to. You think you're reverent, and Jesus said, I'm telling you more than to love your friends and your family and to appreciate the people who give you things. How easy is that? But I'm telling you to have reverence for your enemies, because they too are spiritual beings. Oh, darn that book. I just do not think about them, right? But what Jesus says, I tell you to not only have reverence, but to love them. How easy it is to love people who love you back. How easy it is for us to love the Walter Cronkites and the people who make a difference in the world. But to love all of life, how easy it is for us to love a teddy, a little baby bunny and a little puppy. But a rattlesnake? Huh? Or my brother called me and said, hey, I'm having your place not fumigated, but the bug guy's coming over to your place because I found 2 scorpions in my place, and he lives just down the street. Good idea, But how to put reverence for all of life puts you to the test, doesn't it? Reverence for all of God's. Now, again, we don't have to live with those critters in our house, but we have to begin to raise our consciousness to begin to see everything is part of life. I'm looking at my friend Fred over here, and I know Fred's a football coach, right? So Fred then would have to love the opposing team. And we got a game coming up today, don't we? I think it's the world champions against the Dallas Cowboys in Seattle. What time's the game? Anybody know? 3:30, 3:45 starts. So how many of you know I'm from the Northwest? And how many of you would love me if I laid this Seattle World Championship T-shirt right over the prayer box? Gotta love me, right, Fred? Gotta love me. Now, see, Seattle. Now, Seattle. They hadn't won a championship since the 70s when the Sonics, I think, brought it home. That's a long time. But so I decided not to wear it, but I just wanted to let you know that if you're going to be truly reverent, I got 6 people leaving the sanctuary. So seriously, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's a game, right? It's a game. It's just a game. Except I'm in a pool on Monday nights, then it becomes not a game, but the score for us gamblers. You get to love them all. You get to love everybody. Just like Jesus did. He loved everybody. He could read consciousness. He knew who was for him and against him. He spoke out against the Sadducees and the Pharisees. He kicked over a table or two. He was human. He was experiencing his human condition, spiritual being having a human condition on the earth. But nevertheless, what his primary mission was to raise consciousness, to bring forth the kingdom of God on earth. And this continues to be our mission, is to bring forth the kingdom of God on earth, this planet upon which gave us our human birth. This is our work, you know, and to tap it lightly. And when given the opportunity, check my watch. When given the opportunity, this is my deal. Always give it the light touch, please. When given the opportunity, when you find yourself about to go to war with someone, when you're about to see them as not reverence, nothing reverent about them, I invite you to just stop for a minute, go back to the very book of Genesis, and just give it the light touch. This light represents that. Give it the light touch. Let there be light. Let there be light. When you bring forth that awareness and that Christ presence, you will bring forth the light touch. You will see every experience is different. You will see the presence and the power of God in everything that you do. You will begin to rise above any sense of separation. You will begin to take that first step, which is to choose. Jesus decided to work without losing his bliss. Yeah. How many of you have lost your bliss in the last 24 hours? Choose the light touch without losing your bliss. The quest for spiritual understanding was his primary focus, his very first focus. Then you begin to accept yourself for who you are as a radiant child of God. You begin to step into the flow of life. You begin to give and know that as you give, you receive. When I was in ministerial school, I had the opportunity in those days. You know about the Daily Word? You're familiar with our Daily Word magazine. In those days, you could write daily words, and they'd pay you $50. I wrote a lot of them because I needed the money, and I liked it. And so I stumbled across, you remember this one, don't you? It was April 9th, 1987. You remember that one, Mary? That was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah, I'll share it with you. But it's on the same subject, and I stumbled across it. It says, I give up unproductive thinking and affirm light. The resurrected Christ Spirit within illumines and directs me in the way of wisdom. The daily word on that day that I wrote was light. The resurrected Christ Spirit shines within me now. I feel the infinite love of God and accept all the possibilities of good in this special moment, right here, right now. I live in the now, where neither experiences from the past nor thoughts about the future can adversely affect me. This moment shines with divine light, and I rejoice and give thanks. I am filled with light as I follow the Christ presence within to illumine and direct me in the way of wisdom. I allow the light of Christ to shine through me, blessing the world in which I live. With a feeling of total trust, I rely on the Christ Spirit within as my constant and unfailing guide. My life is illumined and my path is made clear as I continue to follow the guiding light of my indwelling Christ. When given the opportunity, all it takes is to catch yourself and give it the light touch, and your world will be illumined, and your karma, negative karma from the past, will slip away into the nothingness in which it was intended to be. God bless you. Thank you for being here today. God bless.